Chernobyl. The name hangs heavy in the air, even now, nearly 4 decades later. It speaks of a wound on the land and in people's souls. It happened on the 26th of April 1986, a Saturday, in Ukraine, then a part of the Soviet Union. A nuclear power station, named after Lenin, was meant to be a beacon of Soviet strength. An experiment at reactor number 4 went terribly, catastrophically wrong. The heart of the atom, a power we thought we controlled, showed its terrifying face. It was a new kind of war, without soldiers, without bombs, but just as deadly. The explosion ripped through Unit 4 in the dead of night. A sound like thunder, some said. A glow, an unnatural light painted the sky. Firefighters, brave young men, rushed to the scene. They saw flames, a raging inferno. They did not see the radiation. They were not told of the true invisible danger. They poured water onto the burning graphite core. They fought with everything they had. Many felt a metallic taste in their mouths, a burning in their eyes. They were the first heroes and the first victims of this silent war. Their sacrifice was immense, their bodies absorbing fatal doses. A terrible cloud rose from the burning reactor. It was not just smoke. It was radioactive dust, cesium, strontium, iodine, plutonium. Invisible poisons carried high into the atmosphere. The wind became a messenger of doom. It carried this lethal burden across Ukraine, across Belarus, which received 70% of the fallout, across Russia. But the cloud did not stop at Soviet borders. It traveled silently, ominously, over Poland, Scandinavia, Germany, the British Isles, and even further. The world was unaware at first of the poison falling softly from the sky. The Soviet government remained silent for days, an old habit of secrecy. They hoped to contain the news, perhaps even the disaster itself. But radiation cannot be hidden. It leaves a trace. Monitoring stations in Sweden were the first outside the USSR to detect abnormally high radiation levels. They sounded the alarm. Slowly, reluctantly, the truth began to emerge. The world started to understand the scale of what had happened. A fear unlike any before began to grip humanity. A fear of the invisible, the persistent, the deeply penetrating enemy that was radiation. In Pripyat, the model Soviet city built just a few kilometers from the power plant, life continued for a short while. Children played in the streets. People went about their Saturday business. Some residents, curious about the fire and the strange glow, gathered on a railway bridge, later known as the Bridge of Death, to watch. They did not know they were standing in a shower of radioactive particles. The air felt strange, some said. A dryness, a metallic tang. But no official warnings came, not immediately. The sun shone on a beautiful spring day, masking the danger. Then the whispers started. Whispers of sickness at the plant, of ambulance sirens. People began to feel unwell. Headaches, nausea, a persistent cough, an inexplicable weakness. The authorities were slow to act, perhaps unsure, perhaps unwilling to cause panic. But the radiation levels in Pripyat were climbing rapidly. Each passing hour exposed the population to more danger. The invisible enemy was settling into their homes, their gardens, their lungs. The delay in informing the public, in ordering an evacuation, was a critical failure, a tragic miscalculation. On Sunday afternoon, more than 36 hours after the explosion, the announcement finally came. Buses, hundreds of them, lined the streets. Soldiers, many wearing basic protective masks, oversaw the process. Residents were told to pack only essential documents and belongings. They were informed it would be a temporary evacuation, for 3 days only. Do not take your pets, they were instructed. People locked their flats, believing they would soon return. They left behind their photographs, their clothes, their memories, their entire lives. They boarded the buses, a quiet, bewildered exodus. The city of Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, emptied in a matter of hours. It became a ghost city. Silent schools with lessons unfinished on blackboards. Empty canteens with food still on tables. An amusement park, due to open just days later. Its Ferris wheel now a stark, motionless monument. The wind whistled through broken windows and empty streets. The only inhabitants left were the stray animals, the silence, and the pervasive unseen radiation. A zone of exclusion was drawn around the plant, sealing off a vast swathe of contaminated land. Lives were irrevocably broken. The radiation was an enemy unlike any other. It could not be seen, heard, or smelled. But it was there, in the soil, where children had played, in the water they had drunk, in the milk from the cows, the berries from the forest. It settled into the bodies of people, into their bones, their thyroid glands, their very cells. It was a slow, insidious poison. For many, the sickness did not come immediately. It festered, a ticking clock inside them. The fear of this invisible contamination became a constant companion, a shadow over every life it touched. The long-term health effects began to surface. A wave of cancers, most notably thyroid cancer in children and adolescents. Their young bodies were particularly vulnerable. Doctors, nurses, and scientists faced an unprecedented medical crisis. They learned as they went, treating illnesses they had only read about in textbooks. Leukemia, cataracts, heart conditions, weakened immune systems that left people vulnerable to other diseases. The psychological toll was also immense. The constant anxiety, the grief, the feeling of being marked, of carrying a hidden wound that might awaken at any time. The environment around Chernobyl bore deep, visible wounds. The pine forest nearest the reactor turned a ghastly rust color and died within days, becoming known as the Red Forest. Animals in the contaminated zone suffered. Some were born with deformities, others perished from radiation sickness. The land itself, once fertile farmland and rich forest, was poisoned for generations to come. Rivers and lakes were contaminated, carrying radioactive isotopes further afield. The earth seemed to mourn, scarred by human error. It was a stark reminder of nature's fragility in the face of such potent forces. To contain the ongoing contamination, a heroic and desperate effort was made. Hundreds of thousands of men, soldiers, reservists, miners, engineers, scientists, were mobilized as liquidators. They worked in incredibly hazardous conditions. They dropped sand and boron onto the burning reactor from helicopters. Miners tunneled beneath it to prevent a further meltdown. They built the first massive concrete and steel structure, the sarcophagus, to entomb the ruined reactor. Many of these liquidators received high doses of radiation. Their health was sacrificed. Their stories are of unimaginable bravery and often tragic ends. Chernobyl was a catastrophe that echoed around the globe. It served as a brutal, undeniable lesson. The world was forced to confront the profound dangers of nuclear power when safety is compromised. There was a significant push for higher safety standards at nuclear plants worldwide. International cooperation on nuclear safety and incident response, though initially hesitant, eventually strengthened. The disaster starkly illustrated that radioactive fallout respects no borders. Secrecy was exposed not just as unethical, but as a direct threat to public health on a global scale. Transparency became a non-negotiable demand. We learned so much from the suffering. We learned about the long, lingering shadow of radiation, how it can impact health not just for one generation, but for those that follow, how it can remain in the soil, in the forests, for centuries. But amidst the tragedy, we also witnessed incredible human courage. The firefighters who walked into the inferno, the liquidators who built the shield, the doctors and nurses who cared for the sick, the ordinary people, the evacuees who lost everything but somehow found the strength to rebuild their lives, to carry on. Their voices, their testimonies, must never be forgotten. Today, in 2025, the Chernobyl exclusion zone remains largely uninhabited by humans. It is a place of sorrow, a monument to a terrible mistake. Yet, paradoxically, it has become a unique wildlife sanctuary. Without human interference, nature has begun to reclaim the land. Wolves and bears, bison and Przewalski's horses and hundreds of bird species now thrive there. Scientists from around the world come to study this resilient ecosystem, to understand how life adapts in the aftermath of such contamination. It is a living laboratory, offering lessons in ecology and radiobiology, a strange and poignant beauty. The memory of Chernobyl is a heavy burden, but it is not without hope. The new, state-of-the-art, new safe confinement arch, completed in 2019, now safely encloses the old, crumbling sarcophagus. It is a testament to international collaboration and engineering ingenuity, designed to protect for the next 100 years. We remember Chernobyl not to despair, but to ensure such a disaster never happens again. Humanity has a remarkable capacity for resilience, for learning from its darkest hours. life, in its myriad forms, finds a way to endure, to seek the light even after profound darkness.